El presidente de Rusia, Vladimir Putin, se comprometió este jueves a continuar siendo un proveedor confiable de alimentos para África. En una reunión en San Petersburgo, los líderes africanos, el líder ruso, vaticinó que el continente negro se convertirá en uno de los socios claves de Rusia en un nuevo mundo multipolar. Le damos la bienvenida, como siempre, a nuestro corresponsal José Levi para que nos hable más sobre el significado geoestratégico de este encuentro. Cuéntanos, José.
Sí, Alejandra, buenos días. Primero destacar datos, cifras. Asisten a esta cumbre convocada por Vladimir Putin en San Petersburgo 49 delegaciones de la Unión Africana, tan solo se ausentan 5. Esto es un logro para Putin. Pero junto a esto, si en una cumbre similar hace 4 años había 45 países que estaban representados por sus jefes de Estado, ahora tan solo 17. O sea, vemos que la presión internacional ha llevado a que muchos países decidan estar ausentes, al menos a nivel de jefes de Estado. Y lo que sí dijo Vladimir Putin es que el mundo muestra hipocresía cuando culpa a Rusia de realmente la falta de grano, la falta de suficiente trigo, maíz, alimentos básicos, fundamentales en el mundo, al no haber reanudado este acuerdo de grano con Ucrania. Entonces vemos que se trata de acusaciones en ambas direcciones. El Occidente se culpa a Rusia de precisamente hipocresía al no aceptar reanudar este acuerdo de grano, y vemos que ahora Rusia hace lo mismo. Vladimir Putin echa sus culpas precisamente a Occidente. Escuchémosle.
Hemos enviado casi 10 millones de toneladas a África, obviamente en medio de sanciones ilegítimas que hacen mucho más difícil para Rusia enviar alimentos a África. Hablamos de logística, banca y transferencias. Aquí tenemos un cuadro paradójico. Por un lado, los países occidentales están limitando el suministro de nuestros cereales y fertilizantes a África. Y por otro lado, de manera totalmente hipócrita, nos culpan de todos los problemas.
Y dos aspectos también adicionales. Tenemos, por un lado, se ha visto en esta cumbre en San Petersburgo, al menos en la zona de la cumbre, a Yevgeny Prigozhin, el líder del movimiento mercenario Wagner. ¿Qué es lo que pasa? Los Wagner actúan también en muchos países africanos. Otro aspecto también a destacar es que llegó a Corea del Norte el ministro de Defensa ruso, Sergei Shoigu, ahí para participar también en una exposición de armas norcoreanas con motivo del 70 aniversario de la guerra de Corea, la victoria norcoreana, así es como se llama en ese país, pero es de señalar que Shoigu probablemente está buscando armas, precisamente también en Corea del Norte. Alejandra.
José, en el frente en Ucrania, Rusia continúa castigando Odessa con bombardeos, mientras las tropas ucranianas parece que siguen logrando modestos progresos en el campo tras 2 meses de contraofensiva.
Sí, bueno, vemos los ataques a Odessa, a orillas del Mar Negro. Ahí una persona, un guardia de uno de las instalaciones ahí perdió la vida. Dicen en Ucrania que son lugares de grano, precisamente los que están siendo bombardeados. Y vemos ofensivas del ejército ucraniano en el sur del país, aquí en la zona de Melitopol, también en la zona de Bakhmut. Dicen en Ucrania que están logrando ciertos avances. Habla también Volodymyr Zelensky, el presidente, de que hay todavía avances que no puede revelar, pero lo que dicen en Rusia es que están consiguiendo frenar todos estos avances y que la realidad es muy distinta a la descrita por Ucrania.
Ukrainian troops have made a major push in the southern Zaporizhia region as they try to punch through the heavily defended, heavily mined Russian front line. What we've learned from Russian officials and reports is that the Ukrainian troops used around 100 armored vehicles in this advance, including those German-made Leopard 2 tanks, the American-made Bradley fighting vehicles. This front has been a major priority in this counteroffensive over the last few weeks since it started. We have seen Ukrainian troops prodding along that southern front, trying to get through, and in recent days they have made some modest gains. Elsewhere along the southern front today, we did see video of Russian troops fleeing from the fighting, retreating from the Ukrainian side. And recently we have spent time on that southern front with the 47th Mechanized Brigade. This is one of the Ukrainian brigades that got American training in Germany. They received those Bradley fighting vehicles, and they tell us tonight that they are using that combined arms and maneuver training that they learned from the Americans, that their soldiers are advancing on foot under the cover of Ukrainian artillery. Meanwhile, those Bradley fighting vehicles are taking out Russian infantry positions as well as Russian equipment. But as Ukraine presses forward in the south, we are continuing to see Russia attack all across Ukraine from the sky. Dozens of missiles fired at Ukraine all across the country today. The Ukrainian Air Force says that some 40 Russian missiles were taken down. There were cruise missiles used, those hypersonic Kinzhal missiles. At least 4 of those were fired as well. The Ukrainian Air Force saying that the Russian missiles entered the Ukrainian airspace from the southeast and headed west, constantly changing direction. But as we have seen recently with the wave of strikes in Odessa, even if missiles are taken down, there can be significant damage on the ground, that falling debris hurting or killing people. Alex Marquardt, CNN, Kyiv.
So far, Ukraine's counteroffensive has not dramatically changed the shape of this 800-mile front line, but there are signs for the first time in weeks of progress in some critical areas. In the Zaporizhia region, Ukraine clearly still prioritizing efforts to cut through Russia's land bridge connecting Crimea and the Donbass and to reach the Azov Sea. Now, Russian-installed officials and military bloggers say Ukraine has started what they say is a major offensive just south of this town of Orychil. This is known as the Melitopol direction, which analysts believe is one of the areas Russia has fortified most heavily. One Russian-installed official saying Ukraine has used 100 armored vehicles and Western-trained forces and managed to wedge themselves in Russia's first line of defense. A prominent blogger is also reporting that they've broken through here in 3 places, though we have not been able to independently confirm that. Now, moving east of there to another axis, this is Velika Novosilka on the Donetsk-Zaporizhia border. This is seen as a potential access route down to Berdyansk. Now, Ukraine's military are claiming that they have taken some ground around the town of Staromayorsk. They've been pushing down along this river since the early part of this counteroffensive, but for the first time in weeks, they're now claiming progress. And separately, Ukraine is not letting up in its efforts to retake the critical town of Bakhmut. A military spokesman saying they are attacking the city from all sides, with a particular focus now on 2 settlements to the south of the city. We've got them here. They are Klishchiivka, which is just up there, and Andriivka down here. Ukraine is not claiming to have liberated them yet, but the spokesman says there is hope for good results. Now, these are tiny villages. Andriivka, really just 3 streets surrounded by agricultural land, but they sit on higher ground, which is critical as Ukraine attempts to encircle and trap Russian forces holding on to that devastated city. And that's essentially what we're seeing in all of these key areas, fighting for tiny villages and pockets of territory that Ukraine hopes will unlock much bigger gains. Claire Sebastian, CNN, London.
North Korea always looks for an opportunity to show off its military arsenal, and this visit that's taking place right now, the visits from China and Russia, are really no exception. In fact, in the last 90 minutes or so, we have received some video from Pyongyang, of which we have seen North Korean leader Kim Jong Un and Russia's defense minister touring what is being described as a military exhibition. In fact, according to state media, they looked at what are described as new types of weapons and equipment. North North Korea has long shown its support for Russia and vice versa. In fact, the Russian defense minister made a statement today about the KPA, the Korean People's Army, the North Korean military force, saying, quote, "The KPA has become the strongest army in the world." Now, it is not just Russia who has been visiting North Korea. China is also here at a time when all of these nations are trying to find friends and allies around the world. And then that leads into this other issue of Ukraine. These three nations really have been unified together in their support for Russia. In the case of North Korea, according to the United States, North Korea has helped to, or has perhaps helped supply Russia with arms that have in turn been used in the Ukrainian conflict. And then China, while it has not necessarily condemned the war, it has maintained a very strong relationship with Russia and with Vladimir Putin. So we have a historic anniversary with the end of the Korean War, and now three allies, North Korea, Russia, and China, showing a show of support, a show of force of their own, Rosemary.